there is a version of you that already knows what your life requires. He is not confused. He is not constantly negotiating with himself. He is not waking up and handing the first hour of his mind to noise, to mood, to the residue of yesterday, to whatever glowing screen is most ready to occupy him. And then there is the version that has become familiar. The one who wakes with ambition but not command. The one who wants clarity but feeds confusion. The one who says he is tired of drifting yet continues to live in a way that guarantees drift, not because he is doomed, not because he lacks intelligence, but because his days begin in surrender, and what begins in surrender rarely ends in strength. Most people think the battle is dramatic. They imagine some great turning point, some crisis, some visible collapse. But most lives do not break all at once. They fray, they leak, they thin out at the edges. A little more distraction, a little less seriousness, a little more indulgence in thought, a little less discipline in action. Pause, and one day a man looks at his life and realizes he did not lose it in one decision. He lost it in the way he lived his ordinary mornings. That is where the real battle is, not in the rare emergency, not in the speech you give, not in the image you present, in the way you begin another ordinary day. Because if your mornings are scattered, your mind will scatter with them. If your mornings are governed by impulse, your character will follow. And if your first hour belongs to weakness, do not be surprised when the rest of the day speaks in its voice. The tragedy is that this often happens quietly. A man does not announce that he is becoming smaller. He just becomes easier to distract, easier to irritate, easier to seduce with comfort, easier to break from his own standards. Keeps functioning. He keeps answering messages. He keeps showing up to work. He keeps saying he is trying. But inwardly something is being drained. Look closely at modern life and you will see how this happens. The phone is checked before the mind is even fully awake. Before thought has taken shape, someone else's urgency enters. A headline, a notification, an opinion, a comparison, a demand. The nervous system is recruited before the soul has stood up. And then the day begins with borrowed priorities. This is how inner authority dissolves, not through catastrophe, but through intrusion. Not through one great vice, but through 100 tolerated fractures. A weak routine, a restless mind, a mood that decides too much, a body that is overfed and undercommanded, a mind that cannot distinguish signal from noise, a man who says yes to every inner impulse and then wonders why he feels governed by chaos. What exhausts most people is not effort, it is leakage. It is the energy lost in indecision, in self-argument, in digital overstimulation, in emotional rehearsal, in imaginary conflict, in resentments replayed before sunrise. By noon, they have spent more force reacting than creating, and because this is common, they mistake it for normal. But common is not the same as sound. Common is not the same as worthy. Common is not the same as free. The Stoics understood something that modern people keep forgetting. A person becomes dangerous to himself long before he becomes visibly dysfunctional. He becomes dangerous the moment he stops guarding the gates of his own mind. Marcus Aurelius was an emperor, but if you read him carefully, you see a man fighting the same war many people fight now, only in different clothes. Not a war against external enemies alone, but against inner disorder, against irritation, against vanity, against fatigue, against the temptation to live mechanically rather than deliberately. Seneca warned that people are not stingy with money nearly as much as they are careless with life. Epictetus kept returning to one question: what is actually yours to govern? That is the Stoic compass, not performance. Orientation, not appearing strong. Becoming governable from within. Because a man gets lost when he no longer knows what deserves his thought, what deserves his effort, what deserves his emotion, and what deserves none of him at all. This is where modern confusion deepens. People mistake comfort for peace. They mistake stimulation for aliveness. They mistake motion for progress. They mistake expressing everything for honesty. They mistake being busy for being directed. But Stoicism cuts through all of that. Peace is not comfort. Peace is command. Meaning is not stimulation. Meaning is alignment. Progress is not movement. Progress is not movement under principle. And freedom is not doing whatever you feel. Freedom is no longer being ruled by every feeling that passes through you. Pause. So if you want an unbreakable mind, you do not begin by chasing intensity. You begin by restoring order, especially in the morning, because the morning is not just another part of the day. It is the point of moral entry. It is where the mind either takes the throne or abandons it. The first discipline is this: master the first thought. Most people wake up and immediately continue the argument they were having yesterday. They resume worry before they even sit up. They reopen a grievance. They step back into a private narrative of pressure, lack, urgency, or self-contempt. And because the thought feels familiar, they trust it. But Stoicism teaches that the first impression is not the final truth. Epictetus was relentless on this. It is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. That means the first movement of the morning matters because it sets the direction of judgment. If the first thought is, "I am behind," the body tightens. If the first thought is, "I do not want this day," resistance begins. If the first thought is, "Let me see what the world wants from me," the day starts in submission. So the first discipline is not positive thinking. It is governed thinking. Before you touch the day, choose the frame. Something simple, something clean, something true. I am responsible for how I meet this day. That line alone can stop decay, because the mind is always looking for a ruler. If you do not give it one, habit will. The second discipline is to refuse immediate invasion. Do not let the world enter before you do. No phone, no feed, no news, no messages, no digital crowding in the first moments of consciousness. People speak casually about this, but it is not casual at all. When you wake and immediately consume stimulation, you are training the brain to begin in appetite rather than authority. You are teaching attention to become externally led. You are strengthening the reflex of seeking rather than steering, and then later you wonder why focus feels broken. Of course it does. You began the day by kneeling to fragmentation. An unbreakable mind is not built by collecting more input. It is built by becoming harder to enter. The third discipline is silence before language. Before the world starts naming things for you, sit in quiet long enough to hear your own mind without amplification. Not endless rumination, not dramatic introspection. Just a few minutes of undistracted stillness. You would be shocked by how many people fear this. They say they want peace, but the moment silence arrives, they reach for interruption. Music, video, conversation, anything to avoid the naked encounter with themselves. But if you cannot sit with yourself in the morning, you will be handled by yourself all day. Silence reveals the state of the inner room. It shows you what has been accumulating there. Anxiety, resentment, restlessness, sadness, hunger for validation, mental clutter disguised as depth. And once you see it, you can stop worshipping it. That is the point, not to feel perfect, to become observant enough that your own mind no longer manipulates you in the dark. The fourth discipline is to separate control from chaos before the day accelerates. This is one of the oldest Stoic practices because it remains one of the most necessary. Ask early and clearly what is mine today and what is not. My effort is mine. My speech is mine. My schedule, as far as I honestly govern it, is mine. My conduct under difficulty is mine. Other people's reactions are not mine. The market is not mine. The weather is not mine. The weather is not mine. The timing of outcomes is not mine. The approval of strangers is not mine. This is not just philosophical elegance. It is emotional sanitation. So much morning anxiety is born from dragging into consciousness a pile of things you cannot command, and then calling that responsibility. It is not responsibility, it is entanglement. And entanglement drains power before the day has even begun. Marcus Aurelius kept returning to the need to meet reality without complaint and duty without delay. That becomes possible only when you stop trying to carry the entire universe in your chest. The fifth discipline is to name the day's duty before the day names your distractions. Most people know what they are against. Very few know what they are for before the morning gets crowded. So they drift into response mode. They answer, scroll, react, postpone, shuffle, and call that effort. But a man without declared duty becomes food for interruption. This is why the morning must contain one act of orientation. What must be done today? Not the fantasy of becoming a new person by evening, not a bloated list designed to soothe guilt. One clear duty, one honorable burden, one necessary move. When Seneca wrote about the shortness of life, he was not merely warning about death, he was warning about misdirection. A person can be busy for years and still fail to live. Duty rescues the day from vagueness, and vagueness is where self-betrayal thrives. The sixth discipline is to wake the body before comfort roots itself. This does not require theatrics, it requires seriousness. Stand up, walk, stretch, breathe deeply, train if you can. Move enough to remind the body that it is an instrument, not a mattress for your moods. There is something morally clarifying about physical movement early in the day, not because fitness is the highest good, but because inertia has a psychological voice. It whispers later, stay soft, negotiate, delay. The body teaches the mind what standard to expect. When the first physical act of the day is passive indulgence, the rest of the day inherits passivity. When the first physical act contains intention, the mind receives a different instruction. We are awake now. We are under command. This is where many people misunderstand discipline. They think discipline exists to make life harsh. No. Discipline exists to make you trustworthy to yourself, and without that, nothing stable can be built. Now the ascent becomes steeper, because mastering thought and structure is one thing. Mastering reaction is another. The seventh discipline is deliberate resistance to the first easy urge. Make the first meaningful act of the morning slightly difficult on purpose. Cold water, a walk before comfort. Writing before entertainment. Training before indulgence. Reading before scrolling. Prayer before noise. Work before wandering. Why? Because every morning asks the same question in a different voice. Who leads here? Appetite or principle? If comfort gives the first command and you obey it without friction, you have already established the hierarchy of the day. People often think self-respect is a feeling. It is not. It is evidence. It is built when you watch yourself do what is right before it is pleasant. A man who cannot deny himself in small things will speak grandly about character and then disappear when pressure arrives. The eighth discipline is to interrupt emotion before it becomes speech. This is where many mornings are lost. A message comes in. A memory rises. A worry appears. Irritation forms. And instead of holding it, observing it, questioning it, a person immediately enacts it. He sends the text. He makes the remark. He carries the tone into the house, into the car, into the office, into the rest of the day. One moment of ungoverned reaction becomes a climate. The Stoics were not cold men. They were trained men. They understood that emotion often arrives before wisdom, but that does not mean it deserves authority. So build a pause into the morning, before you answer, before you complain, before you let tension become identity. Pause long enough to ask, what story am I about to obey? This is how anger is weakened. This is how panic is interrupted. This is how a man stops converting temporary states into permanent damage. because some mornings are not difficult because life is difficult. They are difficult because the mind is undisciplined in its interpretation of life, and interpretation, more often than people admit, is trainable. The ninth discipline is to secure one kept promise before noon, not 10 promises, one. One task completed, one standard honored, one area where you do exactly what you said you would do. Why does this matter so much? Because identity is not built by intention. It is built by proof. A person who repeatedly breaks promises to himself enters a quiet civil war. Outwardly functional, inwardly divided, he wants confidence. That confidence cannot grow in soil watered by self-betrayal. Every kept promise repairs the structure. Every completed act says, "My word still has weight with me." That changes a man, not instantly, but decisively. The modern world has produced many people who are over-informed and underformed. They know 1,000 ideas about improvement. They have saved the videos, bought the books, written the plans. But their nervous system has learned another lesson entirely. My intentions are decorative. This is why repetition matters more than inspiration, which brings us to the deeper architecture of character. The 10th discipline is to rehearse pressure before pressure arrives. In the morning, remember that difficulty is coming, not as pessimism, as preparation. Someone will misunderstand you. Something will be delayed. A plan may fail. A mood may dip. A temptation may return. A loneliness may surface. The world will not pause because you wanted a cleaner day. This is where Stoicism becomes steel. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself at the start of the day that he would meet interference, ingratitude, arrogance, deceit, not so that he could become bitter, but so that he would not become shocked. The fragile mind is always shocked by reality. The stronger mind makes room for it. If you rehearse nothing but ease, pressure will feel like an injustice. But if you meet the morning knowing that life will test your position, then difficulty does not have to become identity. It becomes training. This is what people miss. Resilience is not improvised in the crisis. It is installed in advance. A man who has already decided how he will meet boredom, stress, delay, and disappointment is far harder to knock off center than the man who relies on mood in every moment. And this is where the morning reveals its true purpose. The morning is not just for optimization, it is for alignment under reality. It is where you stop asking the day to be easier and start asking yourself to be steadier. Once you understand that, the entire meaning of discipline changes. You are no longer doing these things to become impressive. You're doing them so that your inner life stops being a place of constant leakage, so that your thoughts stop ambushing you, so that your habits stop humiliating your values, so that your emotions stop dragging your speech, so that your attention stops being rented out to whatever is loudest, so that your days begin to carry the signature of a man who has remembered himself. Because that is what all of this really is. A remembering, not the invention of a superhuman self, but the recovery of a governed one. The kind of man who no longer wakes up confused about who is in charge. The kind of man who does not need perfect circumstances to be stable. The kind of man who notices the impulse but does not worship it. Who feels the pressure but does not transmit it blindly. Who is not seduced by every convenience, who can be alone without collapsing into noise, who can be bored without running, who can be challenged without becoming theatrical, who can be ignored without shrinking, who can be tempted without becoming available. There is a certain peace that only disciplined people understand, not comfort, not numbness, not passivity, a sharpened peace, the peace of reduced inner friction. The peace of not arguing with every necessary thing, the peace of knowing that fewer and fewer forces can hijack your mind without your permission. This is what an unbreakable mind looks like in practice. It is not loud, it does not announce itself, it does not need to perform power, it moves with a kind of clean gravity. At work, it is less distracted by status and more anchored in substance. In silence, it does not panic. Under stress, it does not immediately spill. In conflict, it does not rush to prove itself. In temptation, it remembers the cost. In loneliness, it does not automatically betray itself for company. It has learned the difference between urge and instruction, between stimulation and nourishment, between being seen and being solid. And once a man learns that difference, some behaviors begin to feel beneath him. Not because he is arrogant, because he is finally awake. Wasting the first hour in mindless consumption starts to feel crude. Complaining before acting starts to feel childish. Letting other people set the emotional weather of the day starts to feel undignified. Making promises to yourself and casually breaking them starts to feel intolerable. That is growth. Not when you become incapable of struggle, but when your standards become too clear to keep living in contradiction without feeling the fracture immediately. Then the morning is no longer random. It becomes a vow in motion, a daily return to order, a private ceremony of self-respect. And the beauty of it is that no one has to applaud it. Most of the real work will be invisible. No crowd will gather because you did not check your phone. No one will celebrate the fact that you paused before speaking. No one may notice that you chose duty over drift, effort over appetite, silence over noise. But your life will notice. Your mind will notice. Your future will notice. Because character is always listening to repetition, and every morning, whether you mean to or not, you are casting a vote for the kind of man you are becoming. So if you have been living scattered, take that seriously. If you have been leaking energy into distraction, resentment, inconsistency, and low-grade self-betrayal, take that seriously. If you have been waiting for a dramatic breakthrough while neglecting the ordinary architecture of your days, take that seriously. You do not need a new personality. You need a new standard at sunrise. You need to stop handing the first hour of your consciousness to chaos and then asking why your life feels unstable. You need to stop glorifying intention while living without command. You need to stop treating mornings like empty space and start treating them like moral territory, because they are. Every day you wake up, life asks the same quiet question. Will you rule your mind, or will your mind be ruled by whatever reaches it first? Will you enter the day, or will the day enter you? Will you live by principle, or by permission from your moods? That is the question beneath all 10 disciplines. Master the first thought. Refuse immediate invasion. Sit in silence. Separate control from chaos. Name the day's duty. Wake the body with intention. Resist the first easy urge. Pause before emotion becomes speech. Keep one promise before noon. Rehearse pressure before it arrives. Do that long enough and something changes that no one can fake. You become harder to shake because you are no longer scattered at the root. You become calmer because you are no longer constantly renegotiating with weakness. You become sharper because attention is no longer bleeding out through every crack. And you become more dangerous in the highest sense of the word. Not volatile, not aggressive, but difficult to manipulate, difficult to distract, difficult to break. That is what self-mastery looks like in the real world. Not a perfect life, a governed life. So let this be the vow. Not someday, tomorrow morning. Before the phone, before the noise, before the old excuses report for duty. Stand up and remember the standard. I will not leak my life through distraction. I will not surrender my mind to impulse. I will not begin another day in pieces. I will meet the ordinary hour with uncommon discipline. I will build strength where no one sees it. I will govern what is mine. And I will do it again the next day. If this resonated like the video, in the comments write the line or insight that hits you hardest, and subscribe for grounded Stoic philosophy and self-mastery content built for men who are done drifting and ready to live with structure, depth, and command. But above all, remember this: an unbreakable mind is not built in rare moments of inspiration. It is built in the first quiet choices of the day, when no one is watching, and you decide that your life will no longer begin in surrender.